Welcome back, my friends, and happy Wednesday. This is part 2 of our deep dive into the parable of the unjust steward. Classroom is now back in session, and I thank you for joining me again here to go over this parable. So now I want to talk to you from the topic of the money test. So last week we talked about what about your friends, and we discussed how stewardship is a gateway or a doorway to discipleship. And it caused us to think about, or at least I hope it caused you to think about your level of stewardship, your level of discipleship, and to reevaluate and evaluate your friendships, okay? And what your friendships will do by way of your stewardship. Today, I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to take an even deeper dive into the parable of the unjust steward. Remember on last week, we talked about this parable, which can be found in Luke chapter 16, verse 1 through 13. And in this particular parable, we see an unjust steward who is being held account by his master, his Lord, about the way that he has wasted and he has squandered the business dealings of this certain rich man. Nevertheless, the unjust steward decides to come to agreements or debt settlements with those who owed his Lord money. Okay, so in doing that, now he comes into a place where he somewhat reconciles with his Lord, okay? With his Lord. And even in this parable, you see that there is a shift or a transition, if you will, because when the unjust steward starts out, because he's in a position where he has squandered, he is called upon to give an account by the certain rich man. But as he begins to enact these debt settlements and come into a place of reconciliation now, you now see where this certain rich man now becomes the unjust steward's Lord. That in and of itself implies now that the unjust steward sees the certain rich man now in a place of authority, and he recognizes the authority and he recognizes that which he entrusted to him as being much more than something just to simply squander or mismanage. That, my friends, is a level of stewardship. Your level of stewardship will cause you to recognize those things that you have been entrusted with much differently, okay? That means you're not going to use your paycheck to go buy red bottoms and Louis Vuitton. You come into a recognition of Christ being your Lord, Christ being your King, Christ being your Adonai. You will see and you will recognize and begin to deal with and have a different relationship with your money and with your material possessions, but you will recognize your Lord far differently than what you did in the past. Now, let's look at that word steward. That word steward is oikonomos. And that means the manager of a household or household affairs. That oikonomos is the word for steward in the Greek. I found a very interesting definition for that steward, though, and that is the quaestor of kings. The quaestor of kings. So I had to look up what a quaestor even meant. And guess what? A quaestor is a person who is responsible, fiscally responsible for the finances of a political jurisdiction or a certain state or government, okay? So this is a governmental body. This is a person now who is responsible for the finances entrusted to him by way of the king. So we, as members of the kingdom, as those that are in the ecclesia, we've got to recognize that we are also called to be quaestors. We are also called to be quaestors. And so it was the same thing for this particular unjust steward. So if we are called to be questers in the kingdom, then that means that we're going to have to pass particular tests. And the test that I want to bring before you today is the money test. It is the money test. And in this parable, the last few verses that Jesus pretty much summed up this particular parable of the unjust steward with, Jesus asked some very, very pointed questions. And remember now, he is speaking to his disciples at the time where he is presenting this parable. So that means he is directing that. He was not only directing it back then to his disciples, but he is speaking directly to you and I today. And in asking these questions help us to pass the money test. They help us to evaluate whether or not we are capable of passing the money test. So let's dig into that first question. You can find it in Luke chapter 16 and verse 11. Let's go back to verse 10. And he says, "He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much." So let me give you my first point today, my friends, in terms of you passing the money test. And that is, faithfulness is bred, it is birthed, it is yielded from managing the least. Let me say that again. Faithfulness is birthed, it is bred, and it is yielded from managing the least. It is your place of least that prepares you to go to the next level. Many folks feel like they are capable of being in a place of much or being in a place of abundance, and they get frustrated and try to move ahead of God in their place of least. But I tell you, my friends, in order to pass this money test, you've got to pass the test of faithfulness. And I'm telling you, when you pass the test of faithfulness, then God will take you to your next level, and God will ensure that your faithfulness is matched with the level that you are on. Let me tell you this, and this one I give to you for free. It is important when you think about the money test that it is connected to faithfulness, because faithfulness yields increase. Faithfulness yields increase. All right? So when you are faithful in the least, or when you are faithful in not enough, then God can now, when you have proven yourself to be faithful in the least, when you have proven yourself to be faithful in your not enough place, God can now take you to your just enough place and allow you to work out your faithfulness on that level. Once you have met the faithfulness test at just enough, now God can move you to the next level and allow you to work out your faithfulness in more than enough. Okay? My first point is this, that faithfulness is birthed, it is bred, it is yielded from a place of managing the least, and your faithfulness will yield increase, provided you pass the faithfulness test. All right? Let me give you also this for free before I go on to my point number 2. I want you to understand that every level of faithfulness that God will test you at, every level of faithfulness that God is testing you, it is a season and it is a place. Okay? It is a season and it is a place. So you have got to come to a point in a place of recognition where you understand that you got to begin to appreciate the place of lease. You got to begin to appreciate the season of lease and to learn what the season and the place is teaching you so that you can pass the test and so that you can move to the next level of increase. All right? Remember now, faithfulness is birth, it is bred, it is yielded from managing the lease. That is point one. Point number two that Jesus talked about, and we talking about the money test, and we all got to pass it. So that means we got to get through that first level of faithfulness. That's the first test within the money test. Now, the second test, or the second part of the test, or second question of this money test, Jesus speaks to in verse number 11. And it reads, "If therefore ye have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to your trust the true riches?" All right. So the faithfulness test is the first layer of the money test. And if you pass that test, then you can be trusted with true riches. Now, I don't have time to break down all of what the true riches mean, nor do I have the complete revelation at this time of what true riches mean. But let me give you what the revelation that I have received up to this point about what the true riches are. And that has to deal with currency. See, we tend to think that that money, or how, let me say it this way, we have elevated money to a place where it is the primary currency. Well, let me tell you, in the kingdom, money is not the primary currency. All right, there are other currencies, and those other currencies are the things that God wants to commit to us. All right, so when we pass the faithfulness test, as it pertains to mammon, and as it pertains to money and to what we deem to be riches and worldly possessions, now he can commit to us, and we can step into this next level of the money test, which is the commitment of true riches, which is the commitment of other currencies in the kingdom. So let me give you just a peek of what some of those other currencies are. The first one being grace. If you cannot manage money, you are not going to be able to manage God's grace. God's grace is a currency. He tells us to come boldly to the throne of grace. Grace being the currency here, being the medium of exchange. When we come to his throne of grace, we are exchanging with him at that throne. We are exchanging, all right? That means that grace is a currency. It becomes the medium of exchange. That is what he wants to commit to us. That is one of the pieces of revelation he has given to me in terms of the true riches. What are some of the other currencies or some of the other true riches he wants to commit to us? More of his glory, more of his presence, more of his light, more of his glory, so that when we go out into the world, we are giving him glory. We are ensuring that he is being even the more magnified. Those are the true riches, or part of the true riches he wants to commit to us. But first, we got to pass the money test. And in passing that money test, we got to pass the first question, or the first stage, which is the faithfulness test. We pass through the faithfulness test, and we can be committed, or we can have committed to our care and to our stewardship more of the true riches. What are some of the other currencies? His favor. His favor. God's favor. We like to say favor ain't fair. Well, guess what? You got to walk through some things. You have to walk through and prove yourself by way of faithfulness before his favor can be upon you. What are some of the other currencies? Wisdom. And Lord knows we need wisdom in this day and age. So we've got to pass the faithfulness test as part of the money test. And if we pass the faithfulness test, now we move into a level of commitment where now the true riches, The other currencies in the kingdom, the grace, the glory, the favor, the wisdom can be committed to us, can be entrusted to our care for the kingdom. I'm still talking about passing the money test, y'all. Still talking about passing the test so that other things can be committed to our care for the advancement of the kingdom. Which leads me to point 3, which is question number 3 or statement number 3 that Jesus makes in verse number 12. And I'm going to wrap this one up here. For he says, this is Jesus talking again, and if ye have not been faithful, there's that word faithful again, in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is your own? So we talked about, as part of the money test, we've got 3 components. We've got the faithfulness test, we have the commitment test, and we have the stewardship test. These are the 3 components of the money test, and we all go through it. We all walk through these 3 levels, and I'm telling you, we probably meet it on every level that we go to. But Jesus is saying, if you can't take care of another man's, how can I trust you with your own? And this, my friends, speaks to your faithfulness as a steward and your preparedness to receive the inheritance that Jesus has for you. So let me tell you this, my friends. The money test is testing whether or not, it is testing your capability. It is testing literally the dunamis that is at work in you. If you don't believe me, go to the parable of the talents and you will see that word capability, that which the master in that parable entrusted to his stewards based upon their capabilities, speaks to the dunamis. So there is a dunamis power working on the inside of each and every one of us. That dunamis power has been given to us to be able to manage the worldly wealth and the worldly gain that the Lord allows to fall and to come into our hands. And we have to pass the levels of that test in order for him to entrust to our care and to allow us to come into greater levels of authority, of influence, of stewardship, and of discipleship in his kingdom. So I have to ask you, my friends, are you ready? Are you ready to pass the money test? Are you ready to show yourself faithful? Are you ready to show yourself committed? Are you ready to show yourself and to present yourself as the steward, the capable steward, the steward that's been enabled with the dunamis power to do all that God has called you to do with the wealth that he has given into your hands? I pray that this 2-part session has been a blessing to you. It has blessed me in even studying these words to bring to you on today. Please share, like, pass these messages on to your friends. I know that, sometimes I've been criticized for talking about money as much as I do, but I believe that God has called me to this for such a time as this, to bring to light the things that his kingdom citizens, including myself, need to know, because there are things that he wants us to walk in this season, and we can no longer be held up. We can no longer be held back, because we are not in the place and we're not in the place and in the places that we need to be. So I pray that you understand the components of this money test, and that this has allowed you to be even the more prepared to pass the test. Amen, and be blessed. Hello, my friends. I hope you have been enjoying Dominion Over Finances. I wanted to come back and tell you thank you for those who have subscribed to the channel, for those that have faithfully watched and viewed the videos, and even for those that haven't had a whole lot of time to watch every video, but you've definitely watched a few, you've chimed in, you've given your comments, your likes, your thumbs up, all of that good stuff. I appreciate you, and I thank you for tuning in. I wanted to come to you and present a special announcement that I have, and that is over this summer, I am launching a financial coaching business. And in that business, I will be helping others learn how to better manage, and I'll be coaching others on how to better manage their finances. This is a faith-based company. This is a company that we want to create and we want to continue to coach kingdom stewards. That is the goal. That is the mission. Nothing more, nothing less than that. There are things that the Lord wants to entrust to our care. He wants each and every one of us in the kingdom to walk in a place of prosperity. I believe that with my whole heart. And so it is my assignment that I launch this financial coaching business so that I can help others be able to manage what God has entrusted to them and to walk in a place of prosperity. Having said that, you will now see a link where you can sign up to get free consultations with me and some of the other coaches that we have. And once we have that initial session, we can determine whether or not you're a good fit for our program. If not, then perhaps we can get you scheduled with another program that is more suitable. Regardless of whether you fit our program or not, we will find you the help and the resources that you need to better manage your finances. Again, I thank you for joining me for Dominion Over Finances. I'm taking it to the next level and providing these financial coaching services and helping God's kingdom citizens step into their God-given place of prosperity and of peace. Again, I thank you, and I'll see you again soon. God bless.
God's grace is a currency. He tells us to come boldly to the throne of grace. Grace being the currency here, being the medium of exchange. When we come to his throne of grace, we are exchanging with him at that throne. We are exchanging, all right? That means that grace is a currency. It becomes the medium of exchange. If you cannot manage money, you are not going to be able to manage God's grace.